Hello everyone, it's Mike Pants Chess here. I hope you had a Merry Christmas, and today I'm going to look at the third decisive result between the CCC11 finals between Leela Chess 0 and Stockfish. And this is actually game 20. Leela is playing white, Stockfish is playing black. And again, after e4, e5, f4, we get into a king's gambit again. After e takes f4, knight to f3, h5, d4, g5. This is the end of the book once again, so we've had this opening plenty of times already, and to be honest it's really bad for black, so it comes as no surprise that Stockfish won this game previously as white against Leela, so now it's Leela's turn to try and win this game. So again she plays the move h4, black plays g4, and again if knight goes to e5 here, black can equalise with the move f3, and after bishop to e3 and d6, that's hitting the knight retreats, and black gains equality by playing this move, bishop to e7, hitting this h4 pawn. So if white goes bishop to f2, black can continue with c5, captures, and start playing moves like knight to f6, hitting e4. White can continue with g takes f3, d takes c5, and after knight c3, knight c6. If white takes this c5 pawn off, black can take on d1. After rook takes d1, black plays g takes f3. And after that very complicated line, we somehow ended up with equal material. So this is how black should play it if white in this position decided to go knight to e5. But white never does this. So again, Leela played the necessary move knight to g5. So Stockfish hits it, and again there's nowhere to put this knight. It seems trapped, right? But no, this is actually a sacrifice from the white perspective, because black loses 2 pawns for the knight, so white plays bishop takes f4, f takes g5 is played, bishop takes g5 by Leela, attacking the queen, so bishop to e7 is pretty much the only move, and then white plays queen to d2. We've seen this variation multiple times, and it seems to be the best position for white to play. So why is it so good? Well, if black now decides just to chop off the bishops and try and win with an extra piece, then white recaptures. Say black develops with d6, white just needs to develop normally with bishop c4, let's say queen e7, and white can even castle in this position, and already white is hitting this f7 square. Again, if bishop to e6, white can go d5, and if bishop retreats, they can play e5 and just absolutely smash open this position wide open. For instance, if d takes e5, white can play d6, attacking the queen. If the queen takes, then this queen takes, c takes d6, and white has this now very nice passed g pawn and can play moves like g6, threatening to play g7. For instance, if black goes knight c6, white plays g7, attacking the rook, and this bishop now eyes up the knight on g8. If black plays rook h7, then white can go rook f8 with check. After king e7, rook takes rook. White has the better position. So it's not so easy for black just to chop pieces off. Stockfish played knight to f6. Leela played knight c3, defending the pawn. And Stockfish plays knight to h7, so they have 3 pieces attacking this bishop now. Leela is pretty much forced to take the bishop off, and the queen recaptures. And Leela plays e5. If black develops naturally, let's say with d6, again white can gain an advantage with just castling queenside. After d takes e5, play bishop b5 check. And once c6 hits, then white can play rook to e1, and he's threatened to play rook takes e5 and win the queen. So in this position Stockfish played king d8, trying to get some king safety. But Leela just now hops in with knight to d5, so attacks the queen goes to e6, and Leela has a variety of moves that she can play. One of these here is actually knight to f4, attacking the queen. And once the queen goes to h6, white can play d5. And the idea behind this move is that now knight to e6 is threatened with a discovered attack on the queen. Rook to e8 actually helps hold this off, because after, let's say white castles first, and rook takes e5, if white now plays knight to e6 with check, then I suppose black can take this off with the rook, and the rook defends the queen. So after rook takes e5, white can actually play bishop to d3, and after d6 then play rook to e1, and black is actually in a lot of trouble, because after, let's say, knight to d7, there's moves like rook takes e5, knight takes e5, and then white can play knight to e6, forcing black to probably take this knight off with the queen. After takes, you have to say that white does have a much better position with moves like queen h6 coming up straight away. But Leela didn't play knight to f4, she played a super solid move, c4, just reinforcing the centre, so this pawn on c4 now protects the knight on d5. Stockfish tries to develop with b6 and fianchetto their bishop. Leela just gets on with development, bishop to d3, very nice square for the bishop. Stockfish plays bishop to b7, and now actually Leela does play knight to f4, attacking the queen, and we've seen this already, so queen h6 is played by Stockfish, and now d5 sets up this trap of knight to e6 check with a discovered attack. So Stockfish defends the only way it knows how, knight to f8 to cover this e6 square. And Leela just plays it really simply, she just castles kingside now. And it's going to be very hard for black to develop. And in the game, Stockfish actually gave up a piece back to try and get into the game. But if black plays a natural move, let's say knight to a6, then I think Leela just finishes black off with the move e6. The point is, if d takes, and this d takes e6, and now there's another discovered attack coming right up. If king c8, then white can play e7, attacking the knight. Threatening to play e8 and get a queen. So if knight to d7, white just gets a rook behind the pawn. And if rook e8, there's bishop g6, and this is crushing for white. But in the game, Stockfish actually played the move knight to c6, just giving back a piece and trying to develop. So Leela obviously has to take this. D takes c6, bishop takes c6, and Leela played queen c3. Trying to move off this pin, so the knight is now free to harass black in some multiple positions. Stockfish went king c8, and this allowed Leela to play knight to d5. If bishop takes d5, then Leela would continue with c takes d, and if queen to e3, there's king h1, and if Stockfish tried to defend with queen c5, white's got nice moves like bishop a6 check, king d8, and white can play queen to d2, threatening to play queen to g5 check with an amazing attack. So after knight to d5 in the game, Stockfish played queen to g7, stopping any knight e7 check ideas, and Leela folded in with rook f6. So this guards the e-pawn by blocking it, and also white is preparing to double rooks. Stockfish played king to b7, so black's king is now in relative safety, but Leela still has a lot of pressure. She just plays rook af1. The pawn material is actually really equal, but the piece material favours white heavily. They've got a knight in the centre, the bishop on d3 does a great job of holding some of black's pieces back, and rook f7 is coming straight away. So it's looking very tricky for black. Stockfish played g3 in the game, so this move sort of helps hamper white's position somewhat, but again, white's really got no issues. Leela just continued with b4, threatening to play b5, and rook e8 was played by Stockfish. So b5 was a contender for a move here, because if bishop takes d5, c takes d5, it's very tricky for black to defend this position. If queen e7, white's got an amazing move e6, and now we'll start harassing the 7th rank with d takes e6, and then white can play queen c6 check. If king b8, then there's d6. For instance, if c takes d6, rook f7 will be an amazing win for white, and black's got to give up the queen. And if we just go back, again, queen takes can't be played because then queen takes the rook, with check will be played. So black's in a tricky spot if white played b5 in this position. But actually, I think Leela also found a better move than b5. She played rook to f7. So still infiltrating the 7th rank. They could play b5 next move if they wished. But Stockfish decided to trade. Queen takes e5, queen takes e5, and then rook takes e5. And Stockfish again has to give up a piece. So now the knight on f8 is under threat from 2 rooks. So rook takes f8 is played, rook takes f8, and rook takes. And it looks as though black has just given up 2 pieces to try and stay in this game. Stockfish played b5, undermining c4, but now it's really just a case of Leela trying to consolidate and wrap this game up. She played rook f5, Stockfish checked, the rook went backwards, and the rook went back to e5, and Leela just played knight to f4, and after takes, king b6, bishop d3, bishop b5. It's just a case of Leela trying to consolidate this position, so rook f3, rook e1, and Leela played bishop to f1. Stockfish captured and Leela recaptured. And I think Stockfish played the right move. They didn't want to swap off rooks, so they played rook e5, defending the h5 pawn. But now Leela plays rook to f3. Rook e4 is played, and the knight takes on h5. Stockfish captured on h4, and Leela captured on g3. So I think Stockfish maybe should have just taken his pawn on b4 in the game, because play would have probably continued knight to f5, c5. Again, black may have some chances in this endgame, but it feels like white's position is actually too strong, and they'll probably queen if black did take on b4, like this position would have occurred, with knight to h6 check. g8 will soon follow. But in the game, Stockfish didn't take this pawn, he actually played rook to g4, so keeping the rook on the king side to try and stop this g-pawn. So Leela defended b4 with the a3 move, c6 was played by Stockfish, and Leela played knight to f5. The rook went to g5, and Leela now just tries to consolidate. Black played d5, white goes king f2, and after a few moves, slowly but surely Leela sort of wraps this game up. She's just going to try and push this g-pawn. This is what she should do anyway, and this is the way to victory for white. I'm just going to play these moves quite fast because otherwise we'll be here all day, and there's quite a lot of moves to get through. So after knight to d4 hits the c6 pawn, rook to d1 attacking the knight. Maybe white should have just taken c6. I don't see why Leela didn't do this. Knight takes c6. If d4, rook to f3 check, king e6 and king f4. Again, this is an easy win for Leela if she wished to play this. But in the game she just played knight to f3. The rook went to c1, check, king f7 and king g4. So yeah, this is an easy win for white now. Stockfish went backwards, rook e6, d4, rook to d6, and after d3 Leela just takes black's only compensation. a5 is played, Leela captures and the rook goes to c5, and after several moves this is an easy win for white. So rook takes a7, knight to e5 check, king e6, and Leela just takes another pawn off the board. There's a few checks given by black, but this is actually really easy to convert. I expect anyone should be able to do this. So again, there's a few checks from black, but this is of no concern for white. And I'm playing through this really fast because there's 113 moves, and there's just no point going through all this because at the end of the day, Leela just does a rook and king checkmate. So for some reason again she gives up a knight. So after a series of moves, there she goes, the knight's been given up, and this is a matter of technique. Everyone should be able to do this, rook and king checkmate. And the game finished on move 113 with rook to e1 checkmate, and Leela wins against Stockfish once again in game 20. So you've heard me say this once, but I actually think this opening is terrible for black, and we've seen it multiple times where white just easily wins this game. Stockfish won a lot quicker in this position. After knight g5, all computers seem to play this move and win as white. I guess it's a good test to see if the white is up to the task of trying to mate black, but it's basically a free point for white if the engine is strong enough. But anyway, Merry Christmas, and I hope you've enjoyed the analysis. Thank you to everyone who subscribed this year, and hopefully it will have a brilliant 2020, and I'll go through a few more of these Stockfish Leela games very soon and hope to see you in the next video.